I've been fighting this fight for a long time, not surprising from someone who came out of the ranks. When I took over as leader of the House Democrats in 2002, a couple of days after Paul Wellstone passed away, we were plunging into a terrible deficit. And Tim Pawlenty's answer was to sign a pledge with the We're Too Good to Be Taxpayers League to say that a few folks at the top end should get really big tax cuts, and you and the good folks of the state should suffer. And there were a lot of people who told me as a leader, don't talk about revenue, don't talk about taxes, hide in the weeds. What the Democrats need to do is just kind of wait for the Republicans to fail. And what Robin Madsen knows, and Brother Mike Busing and others, is that I stood up. And we said we're going to have to raise revenue. And of course, Tim Pawlenty ignored that. And in 2003, what happened? We shed thousands of jobs around this state and took us farther backward. Thousands of people lost their health care. Our schools had the first real cut in our schools in the history of the state since the Depression. So we went into the 2004 election, and I led and said that we were going to raise taxes on the high income. And people said, that's a disaster. You can't do that. And you know what? We got the best election results in the state because we said we're going to make a more progressive tax system, and we're going to reinvest in our communities, in our schools, and in our public services. And then we went into 2005. And as you'll recall, we had that little government shutdown. And Tim Pawlenty said, we can't raise taxes and we need to cut again. And we held firm. And on the 8th day of that shutdown, while some other Democrats said, oh, we can't make it, you should collapse, we made Governor Pawlenty sign the only tax bill he ever signed raising revenue, and we put that money back into local government aid, into our schools, and into health care. And as governor, I'm not going to be collapsing. I'm going to be standing there right with you. I was there, and we made it happen, and we'll do it again. We're going to have to raise taxes on the high income, and we're going to have to make sure that we invest back in our public services. That's what makes Minnesota great, and that is what I will do as governor.
First of all, Matt, I'm glad to hear you say you're going to raise taxes because I've been at a number of these, and it's the first time you've said it. You were going to grow us out of this mess we're in, but that's great. I voted against the 1999 income tax cuts, and I voted against the 2000 income tax cuts because I come from the farmer labor wing of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, and I believe the only fair tax is a progressive income tax. And Mark, I've been saying that since day one like you. You know, I had a flat surcharge on everybody's income tax obligation. It was done in the past. It was done when we had a mess when Al Quie was governor, and he finally compromised, and that's how they got out of it. An easily understandable flat tax, but we also need to tax the people at the top of the income bracket. When the Senate had enough guts back in the early 2000s to talk about taxing the upper tax bracket, I went and checked with our House research. You know, the richest 50 people in Minnesota, and I'm sure they're not even Dayton's, they have a collective income after they hide all their money of $1.7 billion, and those 1999 and 2000 tax bills gave them about $12 million more a year. That's totally wrong in the state of Minnesota. We have to have fair taxes, but we also have to have an educational system that trains our kids and does the research that we can use our natural resources in this state to create jobs. We've been doing that up on the range for years. We need to use our natural resources and do the research so that we can replace petroleum products or whatever. Use our own homegrown products here in the state of Minnesota to create jobs. That's the way we can get out of this mess.
We do need more revenue. We need more progressive revenue. We need more income tax revenue from top-end people. 1999, when we had money, we could have prevented a lot of the problems now if we had invested. Again, it was a 64-to-1 vote to cut taxes. Now we try and raise them again. Well, we shouldn't have cut them in the first place, and yes, we do have to raise them now. We have to do some other things to make our government work, though, too. A lot of the cuts, the ones Tim Pawlenty's making, the one on general assistance medical care, he says it's going to save $380 million. But it won't, because the 31,000 very sick people who he cut from that program would have to cooperate. By that I mean they'd have to stop getting sick. And when you take away their health care, it doesn't mean they stop getting sick. They get sicker. So we spend more, a lot more, because we failed to address chemical dependency problems and mental health, the things you folks work on. Because we've been cutting back that, we're making our problems worse. We're getting in a deeper hole. So we have to do two things. One, we have to raise revenue. Two, we have to invest in preventing our problems. And with healthcare, which several people have mentioned, healthcare is bankrupting our state, it's bankrupting our school districts, it's bankrupting families and businesses. That's why the Minnesota Health Plan, which covers everybody cradle to grave up front, actually saves money, because we treat the problem when we need to instead of waiting until people need the emergency room. I pledge to work and make sure that that becomes a reality, and we do need the revenue, and we need to fix our problems.
I, too, think that we need to raise taxes as part of the solution to solving this problem. We need to raise them in a fair way, and fairness means a couple of things. It means that the folks that can afford to pay their taxes should be paying more of their fair share. Absolutely. And it also means that we ought to be spreading the burden of those taxes equally across this state and shifting it away from property taxes to state-level taxes. But I think that this tax issue is not just an issue about fairness. I think it really is a moral issue that we have to get after. Because when the governor did make this cut to general assistance medical care, when he did that, that crossed a moral line. And I know that a lot of you in this room work with those folks that suffer with the conditions, these veterans, these people with mental illness, people with chemical dependency. They're not going to go away, as John said, but it crossed a moral line in the state. Minnesota can't go there anymore. We can't go further down that path. So we need to get more revenue in the state, and that's about raising taxes. It is also about doing our healthcare system much more effectively. And I would say that there's no one in this race that's worked harder on that issue and will be able to enter the governor's office quickly to attack that issue than I am. I have very specific ideas about how we can actually save money in our healthcare system without throwing people off healthcare, which is Governor Plenty's position. We also need to change the way we deliver services in this state. And as I said in my opening remarks, the way we do that is by going to you. One of the most frustrating things I have as a policymaker at the state legislature is an inability to get to the people on the ground that are actually doing the work. We need to eliminate layers of political appointees above the folks that are actually doing the work in this state. That could get the ideas that we need up to the people that are going to be helping make the decisions. And the last thing is we have to create more jobs, but we have to do that in the right way, from the philosophy that jobs and our economy is just not about the business bottom line, but it's establishing an economy that works for families that they can live on. That is my commitment as the next governor, and that's how we're going to solve this problem altogether.